Gaozong was 21 years old when he ascended the throne. In his first years, he was dominated by the remaining great statesmen of Taizong's court, above all by the emperor's uncle Zhangsun Wuji. However, real power soon passed from Gaozong into the hands of the Empress Wu Hu, one of the most remarkable women in Chinese history. Wu Hu had been a low-ranking concubine of Taizong. She was taken into Gaozong's palace and, after a series of complex maneuvers, managed in 655 to have the legitimate Empress Wang deposed and herself appointed in her place. The struggle between the two was not simply a palace intrigue. Empress Wang, who was of noble descent, had the backing of the old northwestern aristocratic faction and of the great ministers surviving from Taizong's court. Wu Hu came from a family of lower standing from Taiyuan. Her father had been one of Gaozu's original supporters, her mother a member of the Sui royal family. She seems to have been supported by the eastern aristocracy, by the lesser gentry, and by the lower-ranking echelons of the bureaucracy. But her success was largely the result of her skill in intrigue, her dominant personality, and her utter ruthlessness. The deposed empress and another imperial favorite were murdered, and the next half-century was marked by recurrent purges in which she hounded to death one group after another of real or imagined rivals. The good relationship between the emperor and his court, which had made Taizong's reign so successful, was speedily destroyed. Political life became precarious and insecure, at the mercy of the empress's unpredictable whims. The first victims were the elder statesmen of Taizong's reign, who were exiled, murdered, or driven to suicide in 657 to 659. In 660, Gaozong suffered a stroke. He remained in precarious health for the rest of his reign, and Wu Hu took charge of the administration. Although utterly unscrupulous in politics, she backed up her intrigues with policies designed to consolidate her position. In 657, Luoyang was made the second capital. The entire court and administration were frequently transferred to Luoyang, thus removing the center of political power from the home region of the northwestern aristocracy. Ministries and court offices were duplicated, and Luoyang had to be equipped with all the costly public buildings needed for a capital. After Gaozong's death, Wu Hu took up permanent residence there. Gaozong and Wu Hu were obsessed with symbolism and religion, with one favorite mystic, holy man, or monk following another. State rituals were radically changed. For symbolic reasons, the names of all offices were altered, and the emperor took the new title of Heavenly Emperor. The bureaucracy rapidly inflated to a far greater size than in Taizong's time, many of the new posts being filled by candidates from the examination system who now began to attain the highest offices and thus to encroach on what had been the preserves of the aristocracy. Another blow to the aristocracy was struck by the compilation in 659 of a new genealogy of all the empire's eminent clans, which ranked families according to the official positions achieved by their members rather than by their traditional social standing. Needless to say, the first family of all was that of Wu Hu. The lower ranks of the bureaucracy, among whom the empress found her most solid support, were encouraged by the creation of new posts, greater opportunities for advancement, and salary increases. The Chinese engaged in foreign wars throughout Gaozong's reign. Until 657, they waged continual war against the Western Turks, finally defeating them and placing their territories as far as the valley of the Amu Darya under a nominal Chinese protectorate in 659 to 661. The Tang also waged repeated campaigns against Koguryo in the late 650s and the 660s. In 668, the Tang forces took Pyongyang, the capital, and Koguryo was also placed under a protectorate. However, by 676 rebellions had forced the Chinese to withdraw to southern Manchuria, and all of Korea became increasingly dominated by the rapidly expanding power of the southern Korean state of Silla. The Eastern Turks, who had been settled along the northern border, rebelled in 679 to 681 and were quelled only after they had caused widespread destruction and had inflicted heavy losses on the Chinese forces. The most serious foreign threat in Gaozong's reign was the emergence of a new and powerful force to the west, the Tibetans, Tubo, a people who had exerted constant pressure on the northern border of Sichuan since the 630s. By 670, the Tibetans had driven the Tuyuhun from their homeland in the Koko-Nor basin. The northwest had to be increasingly heavily fortified and garrisoned to guard against their repeated raids and incursions. After a series of difficult campaigns, they were finally checked in 679. When Gaozong died in 683, he was succeeded by the young Zhongzong, but Wuhu was made Empress Dowager and immediately took control over the central administration. Within less than a year, she had deposed Zhongzong, who had shown unexpected signs of independence, and replaced him with another son and puppet emperor, Ruizong, who was kept secluded in the inner palace while Wuhu held court and exercised the duties of sovereign. In 684, disaffected members of the ruling class under Shu Jingye raised a serious rebellion at Yangzhou in the south, but this was speedily put down. The empress instituted a reign of terror among the members of the Tang royal family and officials, employing armies of agents and informers. Fear overshadowed the life of the court. The empress herself became more and more obsessed with religious symbolism. She manipulated Buddhist scripture to justify her becoming sovereign, and in 688 erected a Ming Tang, Hall of Light, the symbolic supreme shrine to heaven described in the classics, a vast building put up with limitless extravagance. In 690, the empress proclaimed that the dynasty had been changed from Tang to Zhou. She became formally the empress in her own right, the only woman sovereign in China's history. Ruizong, the imperial heir, was given her surname, Wu. Everybody with the surname Wu in the empire was exempted from taxation. Every prefecture was ordered to set up a temple in which the monks were to expound the notion that the empress was an incarnation of Buddha. Luoyang became the holy capital, and the state worship was ceremoniously transferred there from Chang'an. The remnants of the Tang royal family who had not been murdered or banished were immured in the depths of the palace. Destructive and demoralizing as the effects of her policies must have been at the capital and at court, there is little evidence of any general deterioration of administration in the empire. By 690, the worst excesses of her regime were past. In the years after she had proclaimed herself empress, she retained the services and loyalty of a number of distinguished officials. The court was still unstable, however, with unending changes of ministers, and the empress remained susceptible to the influence of a series of worthless favorites. After 700, she gradually began to lose her grip on affairs. The external affairs of the empire had meanwhile taken a turn for the worse. The Tibetans renewed their warfare on the frontier. In 696, the Khitan in Manchuria rebelled against their Chinese governor and overran part of Hebei. The Chinese drove them out with Turkish aid in 697. The Chinese reoccupied Hebei under a member of the empress's family and carried out brutal reprisals against the population. In 698, the Turks in their turn invaded Hebei and were driven off only by an army under the nominal command of the deposed Emperor Zhongzong, who had been renamed heir apparent in place of Ruizong. The military crisis had forced the empress to abandon any plan to keep the succession within her own family. The expenses of the empire made it necessary to impose new taxes. These took the form of a household levy, a graduated tax based on a property assessment on everyone from the nobility down, including the urban population, and a land levy collected on an acreage basis. These new taxes were to be assessed based on productivity or wealth, rather than a uniform per capita levy. Some tried to evade taxes by illegally subdividing their households to reduce their liabilities. There was a large-scale migration of farming families fleeing from oppression and heavy taxation in the Hebei and Shandong area. This migration of people who settled as unregistered squatters on vacant land in central and southern China and no longer paid taxes was accelerated by the Khitan invasion in the late 690s. Attempts to stop it were ineffectual. By 705, the Empress, who was now 80 years old, had allowed control of events to slip from her fingers. The bureaucratic faction at court, tired of the excesses of her latest favorites, forced her to abdicate in favor of Zhongzong. The Tang was restored. However, Zhongzong's wife, the Empress Wei, initiated a regime of utter corruption at court, openly selling offices. When the emperor died in 710, probably poisoned by her, she tried to establish herself as ruler as Wu Hu had done before her. But Li Longji, the future Xuanzong, with the aid of Wu Hu's formidable daughter, Taiping, and of the palace army, succeeded in restoring his father, Ruizong, the brother of Zhongzong, to the throne. The princess now attempted to dominate her brother, the emperor, and there followed a struggle for power between her and the heir apparent. In 712, Ruizong ceded the throne to Xuanzong, but retained in his own hands control over the most crucial areas of government. A second coup, in 713, placed Xuanzong completely in charge and resulted in Ruizong's retirement and the Princess Taiping's suicide.